Hello, welcome to Podaholiks. My name's James Piecowye, and this is Catching Up. Catching Up is all about, bumping back into people that I've been talking to over the last, 15 or so years. And today on Catching Up, none other than the celebrity broadcaster here in Dubai, local celebrity for sure, radio host. What else are we going to say? Voiceover and voice behind the news. The voice of Spinnies and a whole bunch more. Emma Brain, welcome to Catching Up. It's great to, we're seeing each other via Zoom and we're talking to each other via Zoom. It's great to be back with you again.
I know it's been so long. It literally feels like forever, but I'm so thankful for technology like this that we can just catch up virtually. It's amazing.
Well, the thing I kind of like is, as we were just talking before we started this first catch up episode that we're doing here, and I was just kind of talking about when I first met you and that kind of stuff. And the reality is, when we used to bump into each other at ARN, we never had time to really talk. It was always, and I think all of my bump-ins with people at the studio was always about 90 seconds. That's how long it lasted, because I had to go somewhere, someone else had to go somewhere. How are you doing? What's new? What's good? Okay, see you later. Bye. And this time we actually get to chat.
Well, when I used to just cover your show on Dubai Eye, it was like, James, what do I need to do? And now it's pretty much it.
I forgot about that too. So many people. See, we were talking about Jeff Price just going on here. Jeff also covered that show one summer as well. Yeah, that was Nightline. Boy, this is 12 years I did that program. I met a lot of people through Nightline.
You did, and it was very interesting. And I'm so happy that you've kept a lot of those guests and a lot of those segments going as well, because it was really important and really interesting, and it was a great, fun show.
We just did an episode of Doc Talk with Dr. Jenna Burton, and we were talking food, and it was one of those moments. It's one of those shows, because you've been on radio since 2003 here in the UAE. Before that, in the UK, we're going to walk through some of the great stories you've got in just a second, but talking about the power of audio and the power of radio is Jen and I were talking about food, and at about 7 minutes into this conversation, it sort of takes this turn, and I'm just kind of sitting there and going, what? And she starts talking about, as a young woman, how she had anorexia and how she got through anorexia. And she talks about this for about 20 minutes. And I'm just going, wow, this was not the intended conversation, but what a conversation. And she wasn't hiding it. She didn't feel bad about it. And some of the things she was saying, like at the end, and we were talking about body image and stuff like that. And she sort of said, I don't really like the way I look. I kind of liked the way I looked when I was thinner, but I know it's not sustainable, and it led to bulimia and this. But it was just, again, the power of what we do in audio. And it's exciting and it's fun. And obviously you stuck with it because you do so many things in the audio world.
I do. I mean, I'm still doing a lot of voiceovers. I mean, it's tough right now, being freelancers, because everything's kind of hit the deck. No one's really working. Although I have been doing, I have a home studio, so I've been doing some voiceovers from home. Earlier today, I had to do a little presentation on my phone and send that off for a client. So that was the working from home thing is fantastic. If you've got the kit to do it, absolutely brilliant. But my initial love of radio is that it's still so instant. If you want to know what's happening in the world, turn on the radio, because you can get someone in the studio, you can talk about what's going on straight away. And so many people kind of forget that. I think it's an instant medium. And if I recall back to a great one, but I was working at Red Dragon FM in Cardiff at the time of 9/11. And we all got called in, all hands on deck, and everybody's job was to get this information out and on air as quickly as possible to the listeners, because everyone was listening to the local radio. They wanted to find out what was going on, and that was really cool. But audio, I think, is a fantastic medium. I mean, I've started my own podcast again. I mean, I'm grateful for your the little comments that I've had from people on it, because the dog scenario, dog walking with the COVID thing going on at the moment, I have to myself. So I was like, I've got to be able to take them out. So I got, like you, I got a vet on the line, and we had a chat about what to do. But it's a medium that is very still underestimated, I think, and it needs to be appreciated a lot more, James. I really do think that.
So what brought you to the UAE in 2003?
So my parents were here for a few years. My father used to work for Emirates as crew scheduling manager, and they saw the job advertised for Radio 1 as co-host for the breakfast show. So they sent me the advert, and I sent off my demo reels and my CV, and just didn't think anything of it at all. And I think it was it Jeff that was head of station at the time? It was either Jeff or Chris Rose. I cannot remember.
I think it was, I think I don't, that's such a tough one, isn't it? Because both of them were doing that job at one time.
Yeah. So I applied for it, and I got it. So I came over and I did that show with Chris as his co-host for about 6 months. And then Chris kind of took a back seat. He came off air to do the PD role full time. So I ended up doing Radio 1's breakfast show solo for a few years, which was insane. Yeah, a few years of getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning.
What's your favorite memory from doing that show? I've got a memory, and I keep bringing it up probably every 6 months to you. I've got my favorite memory of your show.
I used to love it. I mean, there's still a few people I speak to now. If I think of one of the things that I always used to do, I always used to champion the local bands and the local artists. I used to make a point. And Dear, the lead singer of Juliana Down, as it was back in the day, he always reminds me, he goes, I used to be on the school bus listening to you on air. And I'm like, thanks, you make me feel so old. But I don't know if you remember it in the Fairmont, because at that time we broadcasted from API Tower on Shakeside Road.
Absolutely.
Radio 1 and 2. And literally across the parking lot was the Fairmont Hotel. And you had the Tangerine Club, which was downstairs in the basement. And then you had the Peppermint Club. So very often, ladies' night, whatever, I'd go out to the Peppermint Club. They kick out at 3 o'clock. I'm like, I can't be bothered to go home. So I don't know if anyone else actually knew this, but I'd go into the studios and sleep on the sofa in the staff room. And Schroeder, who was doing Radio 2's breakfast at the time, I gave him the shock of his life, because he walked in, threw on the lights, which of course woke me up with a start. So there's me going, and he's going, He's like, what are you doing here? I was like, mate, I've just been out clubbing. I couldn't be bothered to go home. So yeah, I used to sleep on the sofa and just get straight up to do the breakfast show in your pajamas.
That is where I'm sure that is where we first met, in that I used to do a volunteer show once a week. I'd come in, started off with Schroeder, finished with Jeff Price, and then he left and things changed, and then I ended up at ARN. And I always remember you showing up in your pajamas, and I just used to think, this has got to be the best job in the world. And the views out of the windows in the API Tower were, at least in the Radio 2 studio, we're out looking on Shakeside Road. It was just excellent. But my memory is one of the segments that you used to do, that has been used by many, many, many down the road, is What's in Emma's Box?
What's in Emma's Box? Yeah, but basically the premise was, I got all the imaging for that. I used to give out clues to what is in the box, and listeners used to have to guess what the mystery item was, and if they got it wrong, then the prize pack got bigger. But I was very fortunate, and this was brilliant. I interviewed Enrique Iglesias over the phone. Great guy, he's amazing. I've seen him several times in concert, and he's super friendly. And I asked him, I explained to him what it was. So I got Enrique to do a little, this is Enrique, please get me out of Emma's box. So I put Enrique in the box.
Oh, that's fantastic. You've had the luxury of working both in the music side, doing the DJ side of radio. You've done the news side. You've done the talk side. You've done this at so many different radio stations. You've really been, and I mean this in a good way, you've really been around the landscape of the UAE.
I think I'm one of I think there's only 3 of us that have worked for every network, apart from the independents, that have worked for every network that are here. And that I think that's myself, Jeff, and Dave Cleary.
Yeah, I think you're right.
we're the 3 that have done. So it would be Radio 1 and 2, Channel 4 and Coast, and ARN. So yeah, I got around.
But the one thing that always, is really delightful about the UAE radio scene is it's so small, and people don't realize that. People say, I want to get into radio. And I always say to them, good luck, because it is such, especially the English language radio, it is so small, and people don't tend to leave.
No, they don't. Unless you do something really stupid or wrong, or you quit, you could be there forever and a day, basically. And this is the thing, it's really tough. If you leave one place, it's very difficult to get into one of the other stations, because you're known, you're a known voice, you're a known personality. So do they want to take the chance of taking on someone that's known, or do they want to try out someone new? It's really tough, and you tend to find the same people have kind of gone around the same stations.
Which is kind of a cool thing. I mean, in one sense, the voice recognition has really served you well, right? I mean, you've doing the voiceover work, especially in the region, because a lot of expats stick around or they go and come back. That must be kind of gratifying in a sense that people say, oh, we want Emma's voice for this ad, or we want Emma's voice for our, Spinny's radio, in a sense.
No, exactly. And particularly with the voiceovers, you get, your clients, your retainer clients. If I think all the Emirates crew hate me so much because I'm the voice of Emirates crew scheduling system, Evita. So they phone up and I give them that terrible flight to wherever it was at stupid o'clock in the morning. And they're like, that's you?
I didn't know that.
And and I apologize to Mashrek Bank customers, because that's me as well when you phone Mashrek Bank. But it's nice. It's nice when you have things like that, and voiceovers here gives you a really good opportunity and scope to do so many different things. I kind of consider myself a bit of the IVR stroke on hold specialist. That's one of the things that I do. Very good at the robot voice. I'm very good at those, and I'm sorry for frustrating so many people for so many times. But yeah, it's interesting, and the voice work is great. And I'm glad that there's such a nice community here for that as well, because as well as the guys that are on air, they all do the voice work as well. You've got Dig and Katie and Peter and yourself and so many people. So there's a nice little kind of community of voices in Dubai and across the UAE, and we've got our WhatsApp groups and are constantly chatting in those, and they get very heated and fun sometimes.
So how did you train for radio? Did you do the classic go to school and do broadcast audio stuff, or did you fall into it and do the alternate approach where learn on the fly?
Yeah, a little bit of both. It all started when I was at Plymouth University, or Plymouth College of Art and Design, and I was doing an HND in media production. So it kind of was the scope of everything. One of my housemates at the time, Paul, who I love dearly, and I still very successful, has a very successful company in the UK called Fresh Air Studios, and they do lots of voiceovers and IVRs and stuff. He was working at the local radio station, Plymouth Sound. So I became what you would call an anorak, the hanger-on, the person that would go and hang out and meet everyone because I had an interest. And we used to go into the studios late at night and mess about and put demos together. And then I ended up producing the Saturday sports show. And back in those days, you used to get all the feeds from IRN, Independent Radio News. So you had your dot matrix printers, so rip and reads, and we used to pin all the doors back with fire extinguishers, because I had to rip from the newsroom, run down to the studio and give to the guys on air, and then record the bulletins and send it back. And then
those are fun times though, aren't they? Like when you think back of it.
It was fun times, and I'm very appreciative that I learnt radio at that time, because it was probably the only time you could get away with walking around with razor blades on your person, because you're cutting and slicing 1/4-inch tape. We were cutting and splicing tape, and that's what we did. I also worked in the newsroom, and then I was putting demos together. And then that one fateful day when a presenter went sick, and the PD went, "Do you want to do it?" And I was like, yes, please. And the rest, as they say, is history.
The news side, going from talking music and, coming up next, we've got everyone's favorite Shania Twain, but then going towards the news side, how do you find that transitioning between the two?
It's very difficult. I mean, my background primarily is music radio. That's what I always did, but very capable at news reading, writing the news, but it's two different hats.
Yeah.
It's very two two specific things. So you have to get into the different headspace at the time, as it were. So, but one is obviously, I don't know, some people might shoot me for saying this. One is very creative. The other is not necessary, you know?
Yeah.
But I have my preferences. I'm a pretty creative person. So the music side and the presenting side is always more fun for me, as it were. Yeah.
The industry though has changed so much, hasn't it? When like when you're talking about Rip and Read and what radio was like then and how the clock worked then to now, it's almost like night and day. When I listen to some radio programs, I feel sorry for those presenters because it really seems like they are so hemmed in on what they can say and do because they've got that clock ticking down in front of them and they're only talking for 45 seconds and then get the music back on.
I mean, this is the thing. You commercial radio for me has gone a little bit too commercial. There doesn't seem to be much personality-driven radio anymore. It's all about, again, certain people will shoot me for this, what clients want and everything. My philosophy is if you have good product and good content, you attract listeners, therefore you attract clients. That's my philosophy of thinking, not the other way around, not bring clients and then pander to them, whatever, which is the way commercial radio kind of operates these days, which is disappointing to me. But, when I think back in the day, and how often with technology, everyone can pre-record shows these days.
Yeah.
I mean, I pre-recorded for radio stations elsewhere in the world, and you sit at home and you record your links and you send them, or they give you access and you insert them. So what is live? What is not live? What is the now? And when I was kind of training people, I always said, leave in your mistakes. Because if you don't make mistakes, if you don't fluff or whatever, it doesn't sound natural. It doesn't sound real. But I always remember, and I go back to stations like Red Dragon, where we didn't have play-out systems and we would play off CDs. Toilet break, you've got 3.5 minutes, go. That was it, playing off CDs. And the way it's changed, I kind of miss the old days, James. Do you know what I mean? I think it made you think a lot more.
Yeah.
These days with technology, you can become very lazy on air. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about going the other route and going into the administration side of the radio gig?
Oh, well, I was head of Radio 1 at one point.
Yeah, I know. And then I don't know. I just that side of it is very stressful to me. I don't like the whole day to day having to deal with, pulling people up and having to deal with all the different departments and everything. It suits certain people and it doesn't suit others, and it just really doesn't suit me. That's not the head I have on my shoulders. I like to do the fun stuff, I like to do the fun stuff. I don't want to be the serious, gotta behave adult. That's always the fun side. One of the fun sides of radio, and it's kind of cool having met so many people and over the years, just bumping into them. And I remember one time I was doing my own show, and I used to come in the mornings because I would never see anyone. So it was the best of all worlds because the show used to go out at 9:00 or 10:00, and you did it. So there's no one in the studio. The only person you run into is maybe the producer that you've got, or the other folks working on other stations if you were like what we were, so 92 and Virgin. And I used to love it when I'd come in earlier and run into some of the other presenters. And so I'm thinking Nats, and I'm thinking Chris Fade and Pretty and those folks. And Catboy, I would run into him and things like that. And I always remember being goo goo gaga, these guys are all celebrities. And I remember Chris going one day, he says, dude, we do the same job. Well, maybe. He goes, dude, we do the same job. But it's all with the fun thing that, and again, coming back to our chat here and where this is, you'll take this wherever it goes, is so often the way people are on air, and it always surprised me, is the same way they are off air. And those personalities, for the most part, followed them through. And I always found that really exciting to be around people like that. Only a very few of them were kind of really different. They had the on-air persona, and then they were completely different off air. But for the most part, what a fun bunch of people to be around.
Oh no, totally. And I just think, it's great. I find radio really, really funny because I always loved getting into radio because I could sit in a box and talk to myself. Right? If you're an introvert, fantastic. You don't have to speak to one, you're just talking to your listener. It's great. But now, man, with webcams and everything in the studio, you've got to put on a face and dress up and everything. And I feel, it's like you're more of a TV host than a radio presenter sometimes. I feel that a little bit, but yeah, radio personalities, they're an odd bunch. I've met some real cuckoo people in years. I cannot for the life of me remember his name, but he was brilliant. He used to do the Late Show on Classic Classic Gold in Plymouth, and he used to come in every night because he used to do the Late Show in his smoking jacket. Jacket and everything, and just amazing, just that persona. But you find people have their little quirks to get around things. I remember one radio station we worked at, there was because you always get told, talk to your listener like you're talking to your best friends. Don't talk at people, talk to them, talk with them. So we had this little trick. We used to have a little clip-on koala. So we used to clip the koala bear to the microphone and talk to the koala, and that was the little trick. But it's crazy what people do. Bonkers, yeah.
And like I said, just crazy. I remember this one guy I'd met, and what was his? Chris Fisher. Do you remember Chris Fisher at all? Did you?
Chris, yes, the lover of cake, Mr. Cake Lover.
And I didn't realize, this was near the end of some of his time here, but he had real problems with being in small rooms. And so he used to always leave the studio doors, had to be wedged open because he needed to see the exit to get out, because he really had this claustrophobia thing going down. And I never realized it until one day I said, Chris, why do you always keep the doors open? He says, oh, dude, you wouldn't believe it. And it was only shortly after that I realized he was my next door neighbor. So for about 3 or 4 years, we lived about 4 houses down, and because of our hours and the way things are in the world we live in, we never saw each other ever, until one day I see him getting out of his house into his car, and I'm going, Chris, how long you've lived here? And he goes, oh, years, dude. I go, I just live at the end of the street. And he goes, really? Wow.
That's insane. That's insane. It blows my mind. And you kind of, it is like a little friendly community. There's friendly rivalries, don't get me wrong. There always is, but everyone's kind of fun and friendly at the end of the day, and it's nice. But yeah, man, if I think back at the things we used to get away with and that we used to do, because my housemate Paul ended up being we were co-hosts at one point, and we did a Saturday Night Live show.
A Saturday Night Live, like the Saturday Night Live out of the US, that kind of Saturday Night Live show?
It's called that, but just kind of anything went. And Paul used to make so many bluffs that the blooper reel was extensive. But the station had this massive OB van. The thing was so heavy, it had a double axle on the back, right? And one of these 30-foot masts that you had to pump up. It was a pump act that you had to plug it in overnight and charge this thing. So I stayed in the studio, and Paul stole the OB van. So he goes out in the OB van delivering pizza to random listeners. And we do this whole thing on air. It was just ridiculous. And the next day, the PD's like, get in here, you two. He was like, brilliant. Do more of that. Absolutely brilliant. You've got to take risks sometimes. Sometimes it'll backfire on you terribly, but sometimes you'll get away with it.
Did you ever have any of those that backfired on you?
Not really, to be honest.
Yeah.
Not really. Because it was fun. It made for fun listening, It's hilarious. You go and steal your OB van. Why not? It's fine.
Oh man, it's almost like a little bit of nostalgia, isn't it, when you start thinking about it, and how things have changed as we've been saying. It's almost like it's gotten a little bit more stressful in a sense in some cases on doing things, because there's a lot more rigidity, and as you said, you're really programming to make sure that your sponsors want to keep sponsoring the program so that you can keep doing it. And it's really changed. And I sometimes wonder if the radio industry itself has kept up with the change. And my gut feeling as a professor and as someone who works in the field is it hasn't. And that's why the work that you're doing in podcasting and the stuff that I love to do gets people listening and gets people excited, because it's authentic again.
No, exactly. And I hear so many people telling me that now they're listening to podcasts because they can find things specific to what they want to listen to. But so they're listening to online stations as well. Yeah. Online stations are huge these days. I mean, that's a kind of difficult thing when it comes to advertising or whatever. But it's always, I think, I'll come back to the point again, and it is a boring point, I know, but it all comes down to money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that's a sad thing. If you had all the money in the world, you could do whatever you want on air. But it all comes down to funding and money. Some stations in the world are governmentally funded, others are commercially funded, so you have to pander to it's a really hard balancing act, I think. But for me, you always gotta, what does your listener want? What does the person out there want to hear? What does your audience want to listen to? And those are the people that you need to listen to.
I got to confess, I don't listen to nearly as much local radio as I used to. And I'm one of those people who's listening to my favorite podcasts and, Spotify and whatnot. And it's sad. And people say, oh, but you go to it for the local news. And I said, well, it depends where you live. And in my case, no, not really. and it's kind of sad. I really feel sad for myself that I'm not tuning in like I used to.
It's one of it's one of those things with local radio. What do you need to do to get people to listen? But like you, I'm at home and I'm working at home, or I'm studying and I'm working out, and I fire up my Fire Stick and I go, Alexa, play me 80s songs, and it just plays me a massive playlist of 80s songs or 90s songs, ad free, talk free, whatever. that's what I'm listening to.
Well, speaking of 80s songs, I was watching Ozark the other day on Netflix, and they spoiler if anyone hasn't watched any Ozarks, there's a whole episode where REO Speedwagon's involved, and those guys are looking okay, actually. And I thought, you know what, I want to listen to some REO Speedwagon. So what did I do? I hit up the old Spotify, listen to some of that. I say, you know what, forget just REO Speedwagon. Give me REO Speedwagon Radio, which is all of those tunes from that era. And I'm listening to this going, this is the best radio mix I've ever heard. And my wife's going, what are you listening to? And I'm going, everything from the REO Speedwagon era. And it was just spectacular.
I love that. And this is the thing. I watched what was it? I was watching a couple of weeks ago. Rock of Ages, the movie Rock of Ages. Yeah. What amazing soundtrack that is. So I'm like, literally, look at all the songs from that soundtrack, and the Scorpions and the rest of it, Foreigner, and Bon Jovi. And I'm just like, I'm just gonna listen to that all day. It's great. Oh, technology. See, it's technology again. It's causing problems.
It is. Hey, I've got a question. You got a couple of dogs in the house. I see one just walking behind you. What are you doing?
That's my cat.
Oh, that's a cat. Sorry. What are you doing for exercising those critters?
So the dogs were allowed to take out for 10-minute toilet breaks, which is fine, but they're lazy anyway, so they're sleeping most of the day. The older one is disabled, so it doesn't bother him that much. The cats are actually causing more of a problem than the dogs. But it's a little bit. I never mind the animals. I'm getting claustrophobic. I have a tiny little balcony, and I just go and sit out there with my coffee or orange juice. But oh man, cabin fever is starting to set in. I'm like, what can I apply for a permit for? What's my excuse to leave the house today?
Yeah, no, it's a big challenge. And you're right into the exercise things. I mean, walking the dogs, but I remember seeing, I know you just rolled your eyes. What are you talking about? But on your Instagram, you've had some pretty spectacular images where you were doing, I call them the silks. I don't know what you were calling them. You called them something where it's the
aerial silk. Yeah, aerial. So I was doing aerial silks.
Do you still do that?
Pole. Well, there's a pole right behind me.
See, you've got a pole in the living room, and I was wondering if you got some silks in the living room too. No.
I don't have an anchoring point. I think my landlord might kill me for drilling into the ceiling to put an anchoring point in. And to be honest with you, James, with the construction here, I wouldn't trust drilling into my ceiling to put an anchor point in. Not going to be doing that here.
What made you go down working on the silks? That's a huge endeavor for, just for your core strength and things. And I sort of have been, I followed you on Instagram over a good year and plus that you, from when you started and successively got better and better and better until it was like, man, you could be Cirque du Soleil, you could be in Pearl. You're looking pretty good up there.
I just, stuff like that. I get really, really bored in the gym. Basically, gym workouts bore me and ordinary workouts bore me, and I needed something that would work everything. And it's all body weight and flexibility and gymnastics, and nothing has toned me or helped me lose weight quicker than doing aerials. And
Really?
I took up pole because the pole was really helping with the silks, although the bruises and the burns aren't much fun, gotta say. You never have bruises like you do when you do pole. You look like you've been beaten, literally
Really?
beaten. It's terrible. Yeah. Oh yeah. When you're climbing, you get bruises and burns all over the place. It's horrible.
How long have you been doing pole?
Probably about a year or so, but I haven't been doing it for a while. I need to get back into it. But guys can do it too. There are guys that do it as well. They have the Dubai Pole Cup, and there's a men's category. You can always give it a whirl.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Okay. But guys are just too lazy, I think. I think the women, they kind of see these things and say, you know what, I'm going to get out there and do it. And they do. Whereas guys, they kind of think, oh, I'm just going to, do bench pressing. I'm just going to, I'm going to hit the CrossFit box and I'm going to do it over there and that's it. And, that's
the thing. The guys tend to all go for the muscle thing and kind of neglect all the flexibility. That happens a lot.
I was actually, one of the things I noticed with all the fitness things that you've been doing, and as I said, a lot of core, a lot of flexibility, but you had quite the transformation. Just in the time that I've known you, you really went through a number of different transformations, and you're, where you are now is spectacular, but you really talked about that as well at some points.
I was a terrible comfort eater, and then when I get stressed, I don't eat a lot. So it swings and roundabouts one way or the other. But I think it was probably the end of 2018. I was probably at my heaviest. I was about 71 kilos. Doesn't sound like a lot, but for me, and I'm not particularly tall, I'm 5'5" or 165. And it felt heavy for me. So I kind of went on this mission, and it was all about the diet, really. So I really cleaned up my diet. And once you realize that you don't have to eat the amount of food that you need to operate, that really helped. So portion control. And I lost about 14 kilos in 3 months.
Wow, that's spectacular.
Yeah. So I've managed to keep it around kind of 50, 57, 58 at the moment for a while. So that's good.
It's a lot of clean eating. Is that what you're doing?
Well, they're not today because it's Easter, so I've chocolate. I find a lot of chocolate today.
I find the clean eating so easy yet so hard. I mean, I know what I have to do. There's great recipes. There's great places I can get that stuff, but I just find it so hard to stick with. The temptation kills me.
It's not, and it's the cravings. I mean, when I Jason, one of my fitness buddies, I was training with him, and he put me on this kind of 2 weeks clean eating thing. So there was no dairy, no processed carbs, no sugar, no so many things, and it was basically just meat and veg. That was it. And it's the withdrawal. You get headaches and you get grumpy and your body does crazy things because it's not getting dairy or it's not getting sugar. Sugar's one of the hardest things to give up. But like in my coffee, I drink black coffee with honey now. I don't have milk and sugar in coffee. I just have black coffee with a spoonful of honey, and that's it.
Sounds like it works.
It takes a bit of will. It takes a bit of willpower, but once you get over that first few days and the headaches and all the rest of it, and you start to feel better, and you see the bloat go away, and you notice a difference very, very quickly. That's the thing that keeps you going. Once you start to see those changes, that's the motivation for keeping it up.
And it's when people notice it and they say, "Oh, Emma, you look so great," or "Oh, James, you're really looking in shape," and you kind of go, "Okay, yeah, it's working, it's worth it."
Absolutely. I mean, and it's just, I see so many people, and I'm so happy to see so many people really kind of making an effort to sort themselves out and get better. And I think one of the plus sides of what we're all going through at the moment, it's making a lot of people rethink their lifestyles and their priorities, because we're kind of all in the same boat right now. So it doesn't matter how much money you've got, how much material things you've got, how much, what you can afford, whether you go brunching every day, every weekend, whatever. We're kind of all in the same boat. So it's making people look inwards as opposed to outwards. And that's great. And they're really all focusing on themselves. And I love that.
One of the things that I love about following you on Instagram, give us your Instagram handle, by the way.
Emma Brain Official.
Emma Brain Official. Okay, so easy to find you.
I had to change it because it was Emma Pinky B, as is my Twitter handle. But, because my last name is Brain, so the nickname is Pinky in the Brain.
I did see that. I never knew what that was about. And then I kind of saw the show and I go, not a show I watched growing up. So when I saw that on your webpage, I went, oh, that's why.
That's why. So Pinky's the ditzy one. So some days I'll be Pinky, and other days I'll be the Brain. So, but because I kind of got into, I was taking advice how to kind of enhance my social media, and I spoke to a couple of my PR friends, and they said, well, seeing as you're kind of getting into the acting thing and all the rest of it, you need a proper account. So use your, and someone else already has my name, which is frustrating because it's an inactive account. It hasn't been used for years. And I'm like, oh, come on. So I just had to put my name with official. Okay.
It's like people have tried to hack you. This is a positive thing.
Yeah, it's just, shame, but whatever.
You're really fortunate or unfortunate, depending on how you want to look at this, that you get to travel quite a bit to North America when traveling is possible. And New York City is one of the places that you've been lucky enough to go on in better days. Yes. What do you love about New York?
I just, I've never, people kind of always say that, New York could be done. I've never had an issue in New York. I feel perfectly happy and safe going and using the subway by myself and wandering around, and I'll go for where my husband stays because he works there a lot. So he stays in East Harlem, and so Central Park is a couple of blocks away. So I can just walk out the apartment building and go for a run around Central Park, and I have to go and do the Phoebe run. The Phoebe run. But I just like, everything is there, and it's just every time I go I find something different. I love the Chelsea market, the Chelsea meatpacking area. The last time I went, I checked out the High Line, this couple of miles walk that you can do through the rooftops and everything. There's just so much to see and do, and so many shows, and just the variety of people that you see as well. I just find it a really fascinating city. But I'm fortunate. I've got a lot of relatives in the US. They're in Denver and Florida and Kansas and all over the place. So I need to go and move around a little bit more as well. Yeah. Could
you imagine yourself immigrating to the US?
I'd love to. I think there's still so many opportunities. When I look up, presenting, there's like hundreds of presenting jobs in the US right now. It's just, there's so much, so many different opportunities there. And since I've kind of trying to get back into sort of the acting, casting thing.
Tell me about the acting thing. So what's going on with the acting thing? This is a side of you that is new to me.
So I did theatre studies at A-level when I was at college, and when I moved to Wales, I lived in Bridgend in Wales for a bit. I had an agent, and I used to be a regular extra on a couple of TV shows. One was a period drama, one was like BBC Crime Watch, but for the BBC Wales audience. So I used to do a bit of that and a couple of this, that, and the other. So I kind of got back into it here, and it kind of, I ended up working on Six Underground with Michael Bay and Ryan Reynolds.
Okay, I watched that. Where were you in that? What scenes?
I'm in it for about 3 seconds in a scene with Ryan. You can actually see me behind Ryan. The scene where he's walking through the medic tent carrying the water canisters. I'm pushing a guy in the wheelchair behind him.
All right. I'm going to go back and look at that.
But it was 48 hours of just super fun. And when you actually get directed by he was like, you come here. And I'm like, who, me? That was amazing. It was just to see him work and be involved in a massive production like that was huge. But there's little acting jobs, and you go to lots of castings, and I've done a couple of hospital shoots and a couple of different shoots recently, and some still stroke modeling shoots and all the rest of it, which is hilarious. But I think it's a lot more challenging here in the UAE. And I've had discussions with quite a few, because you go to the auditions and it's the same people over and over and over.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting topic that we've had with various people, and they said you have to bear in mind with commercials and stuff what the UAE is trying to sell. We're not selling reality; we're selling an image.
Yeah, okay.
So if you're Joe Blogs on the street, you're probably not what they're trying to sell. Whereas in other markets like the UK or the US, it doesn't matter. There's something for everyone. It just depends where you are. It's a different market. So yeah,
I guess one of the big challenges, and it keeps coming back. So whether you're doing acting, whether you're doing voiceovers, whether you're doing radio, there is a whole level of, let's say, critique that you get opened up to, and the rejection that you get opened up to when someone doesn't like your reel. And I'm just projecting here with radio, and maybe people don't realize it in radio today, but when you send in that SMS saying, this is the worst show I've ever listened to in my life, get this person off the air, the person on the air is reading it in real time. And it's like, no matter how you say to yourself, come on, they don't really mean it, you're looking at that and you're going, really? And
I'm so glad you brought that point up, James, because we all get it. You've been on air and an SMS comes in and people could be horrible and they forget that there is a human being sat the other side of the microphone. My take was I'd always call them.
Yeah, me too.
I'd always call them. I go, okay, you've just sent me a really nasty, horrible text. Tell me in person what it is you don't like about what I do. 9 times out of 10, they will.
So I've got Emma Brain on the line here, but I don't hear her talking at the moment. Emma, I've lost you. I can see you, but I can't hear you. Uh-oh. Where did she go?
Uh-oh.
There you go. You're back.
I have no idea. So you're back. You're back. What was I saying?
Yeah, so you were at the point where you've called them up, and 9 times out of 10, you say, okay, tell me what's the matter.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, they would never expect you to call them,
and
they suddenly go, oh, I didn't mean it, I was sorry, because I always say to them, how would you like it if I walked into your place of work, stood in front of you, and told you you were crap?
Yeah, exactly.
How would that make you feel? Because people don't think about that side of it. They don't treat you. I guess the philosophy of some people is, oh, if you're in the public eye or the public ear, then you should expect stuff like that.
It's like, no.
Not really.
But it's almost the same kind of thing. If you're auditioning and you're going to auditions and you're throwing down your reel and you're doing a read and you just hear, you didn't get it. It's tough.
I pulled up one because there are loads of casting agencies here, and I pulled up one recently because what they were doing, if you didn't get the role, they'd email you and go, sorry, you didn't get the role, but keep applying. But here are the profiles of the people that did get selected for this job. And I'm like, why don't you just include links to plastic surgeons and stuff on the bottom of it? And I'm like, for someone like me who's been in the entertainment industry for decades, it's water off a duck's back. I get it. But you send that to a child or someone that's new, and you can't do that to people. You need to give them constructive feedback, or and they were like, okay, we get it, we won't be doing that again. I read an interesting quote from Liam Neeson recently, and he basically said, when it comes to rejection, if I go in and I don't get the part, he just says, not today, maybe tomorrow.
Well, this opens up an interesting point. You've brought up that there are so many kids right now, and I mean, I'm glad I'm not finishing high school today and looking at university, or finishing university and looking at my career, because I look at my own kids who are finishing university and college and the challenges they have. And I thought it was tough when I finished, and clearly it is nothing like today. But could you imagine if you were fast forwarding to all the things that you've done, you were to be starting off again today? Do you think you'd be going down the same route?
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. Because it's just, I mean, and I don't want to put the whole blame on social media, but there's so much pressure to look a certain way or be a certain way. And I literally, people like Logan Paul who stand up and say, I'm assuming you know who Logan Paul is.
Yes, I do.
Got hot water last year, who stood up at a conference last year and basically said, all your kids should drop out of school and learn to be YouTube stars. What? It's just, you can't be saying that to kids.
Yeah.
It's too much pressure. And I like the way that, Instagram and Facebook are taking steps to kind of be kinder to kids. They have to know their self-worth. But if I tried to get into doing what I'm doing, I get people, you probably get it all the time, James. People contact you going, how do I get into radio? How do I get into doing voiceover stuff?
Yeah. What do you tell them?
And it's like, I had one this morning, actually. A guy sent me some stuff. And I will never be nasty to someone. I will always give constructive feedback. And I said, personally, constructively, you need to work on if you're delivering in English, I said, your accent is very, very thick. For me as a native English speaker, I find it very difficult to understand everything that you're saying. So you need to work on your articulation and your delivery and your pronunciation and be more, inflective in your tones and pace and everything, because he was so monotone. It was like, God, I'm falling asleep, I didn't say that, but you have to be, I will always give people feedback if it's asked, because I think you have a responsibility to do that. People have come to you, they've looked up to you as a peer, so I think you should at least be kind enough to give them some sort of feedback in the kindest way possible. Yeah. So
if you were starting off fresh right now, that you just finished high school and you were going into college, or if you just finished college, what do you think you'd be doing? If you weren't doing audio and acting and voice, where would you be?
Vet, marine biology.
Really?
I always wanted to be a vet, and that's what I did for my work experience at school. I always wanted to be a vet, but I don't have the brains for the sciences, unfortunately. I'm not that smart, but I would like to do something working with animals, so maybe an animal behaviorist or something like that. I'm actually doing an interesting, while we're in kind of lockdown, an online introductory course to social psychology. That's really interesting.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool.
Now I'm looking at people going, why are they doing what are they doing? Yeah.
Very neat. Does that I'm getting this nice picture of Emma Pinky Brain here all of a sudden, and as you're talking about all these things, and it just makes me start thinking, okay, you've rebooted, in a sense. You said your own podcast on Podbean. Tell us a little bit about that, because this is, people, I am certain folks who are listening to this are going, I want to hear more of what you do. Tell me about your forays into podcasting.
So I've done a few travel podcasts. They're all up there. My ones from a couple of years ago. So I've done a few travel ones and a few interesting interviews. I recently introduced a vet about the whole dog thing, but I really want to keep it kind of topical and topics that are affecting people now. But there's one I've got to do this week, because yesterday I woke up with the writing bug yesterday. There's been an idea that's been in my head for a while. So I sat down and I wrote for about 3 hours, and I wrote a short story, and I sent it's an internal monologue, and I sent it to a couple of people, and they were like, you made me cry.
Oh no.
No, that's a good thing. Emotional
response. Yeah.
So they said, you need to record it as one of your podcasts. Just record it as your voice. Just read it as a script. So that's one of my missions to do. But my podcast will be a little bit of everything. But it's basically stuff that interests me and that I hope might interest other people as well. So I'm waiting for some feedback to come on dealing with the mental health issues of these lockdown things. And I'm hoping to speak to someone that's been, diagnosed and released with coronavirus, and just this, that, and the other. Yeah. It's a tangent podcast. It has no for a reason. It's a little bit of everything.
But isn't that it? Like you said, why do you make a podcast? Why do you do what you do? You do it because it's something that interests you and it's something that you love. And if other people want to listen to it, excellent. And if they don't, it was therapy for yourself.
No, exactly. And sometimes you just gotta get things out, and it's almost like an outlet sometimes, I guess. Like, I want to talk about this subject. It's a cool subject, interests me. Maybe it'll interest some other people, so why not? And podcasting is so easy to do these days.
It is.
Do.
I mean, it's so many of the different podcasting services make it really easy just to use your mobile phone if you want. If you can use your computer, you get a decent USB mic, and suddenly you've upped your game. It all comes down to, people often say to me, "How can I do a podcast?" Start doing it. Think about your structure. Think about what you're going to say. Think about if it's just going to be you. If you're going to have a guest, think about how you're going to make that work, and just start doing them. And they say, "Yeah, but what if no one listens?" I said, "Then no one listens." It's like, start doing it.
You don't have to go and interview someone. I mean, the vet thing, what I did, I emailed the questions and they sent me voice notes back.
Oh, even better.
And I said, keep it chatty and interactive, like you're actually talking to me. And I just inserted them into my questions, and I did it that way. And you just, Audacity, free editing, and on my computer. And it's just, it costs virtually nothing to get up and running.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
What do you like about Podbean? That's the service that you use to put your podcasts up.
I picked your brains over it, and Podbean was it gave a little bit more flexibility for me. There just seemed to be a little bit more. I looked at the one you use, and I looked at was it Buzzsprout?
Yeah.
I used Podbean before, and I liked it just as a hosting platform, and it always comes recommended as one of the top 3 or 5. And it just, yes, it costs, but it doesn't cost a lot for a yearly subscription. And it just, if you do the paid for one, it's unlimited, the amount you can upload. It doesn't matter. It stays there forever. And it just had a few other options that just made it easier. I sit there and I scroll through these things and do all the comparisons, and it was just the one that sat better for me. Really.
There are so many options, and that's what I always say to people. I said, you know what? Choose the format, the platform that you're comfortable with, and then it all becomes how you publicize it, getting it up on your webpage, sending it out on your socials, letting people that you do it. That's the real big challenge, and that's.
They give you your own page as well, which is nice, and they link to iTunes and Spotify and everything else. And just by one click, that was the ease of it as well. So, yeah.
I think that's the game today, isn't it? If you can get on iTunes and Google Podcasts and Spotify, those are pretty much the 3 places where everyone listens from. And if you're in those and people know that you're there, you're laughing. It really makes it so easy.
Absolutely. And there's no reason why anyone can't start a podcast these days. It's very, very easy.
Although I don't want them to start a podcast because I want them to listen to me, but
You have great content, James. You have great shows every week. So that's fine. Podaholiks is fantastic.
It's just the fun. I think it all comes back down to it, right? Is how much fun are you having with what you're doing? And if we can only figure out, and I guess that's the big challenge, and one of them that you allude to all the time is, okay, so how do I build my career around this? And how do I have this as a piece of that career? And I think that's probably when I listen to people talk and I listen to what you're saying, I said, it's not a career, it's multiple channels of a career. I now think of careers as channels, and the multiple channels of those careers that one has going. So, Emma Brain, the story writer, the fiction writer, Emma Brain, the podcaster, Emma Brain, the voiceover, Emma Brain, who's doing her current affairs interview show, and all of these things. The challenge is the stress of managing them all. And I think that's what we haven't figured out yet is how do we manage all of these channels of our careers?
And not only that, is how do we do these things that we love and get paid for it?
Yeah. That's the big one.
That's the other thing. That's the really, really hard thing. And what it's like, freelancers, we're all going through a really tough time at the moment trying to get paid, because when you're freelance and you do these things that you love, payment terms are 30, 60, 90 days if you're lucky. the moment. It's, you spend half your time check chasing, and that's really frustrating. But yeah.
I just don't get it. I think the creative industries constantly get this backhand all the time from folks who think, oh, well, I'm going to get Emma to come and do a voiceover, and then they take 90 days to pay you. Well, or they kind of, well, anyone could really do it. We're getting you, but anyone could do it. It's like, hold on a second. If anyone could do it, and you would do it yourself, and you can't. So exactly. There's a talent that comes with the time and the experience and the ability that if I get you to walk into a booth and I give you a script, I know that in 10 minutes I'm going to have what I want and you're going to leave, as opposed to getting my niece in to do it and I'm going to be there all day and still not have what I want.
I think, and that's the thing, and I come back to another one of these quotes that I keep seeing doing the rounds recently. It takes me 10 minutes to do what I do because it's taken me 10 years to train to do what I do.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You pay someone because they're professional and they've spent the time and the effort to learn to do what they do. I look on the freelancer forums at the moment, and the videographers and the photographers are getting frustrated. And someone actually said to them, why do I need to pay you loads of money? Surely all you do is point your camera and press record, right? It's like, well, you do it then. Exactly. Well, you do it then. If you think it's that easy, you do it.
Yeah. I got to laugh because I was shooting some video for some events that I do, only because I couldn't get a videographer in to do it. Everyone was busy. There was no money to be had in it. And, the shoot of the video is actually not that hard. I got to admit, I'm not good at it, but I can line up a shot. I had some videographers talk to me through lighting, and they were doing that. And, I could get some basic footage. I was happy with that. That's not the hard part of the videography job. What do you do with that footage and the post, the editing, the lighting fix, all these things? And it was hilarious because I would sit down with these videographers after, and they were really nice because they'd say, okay, well, you got your footage. All right. So what are you using? And okay, use this. And I say, okay, I'm using Adobe Premiere. Okay, that's good. And then I'd ask them how to do something. And I say, okay, now I got to sync up the audio. Yeah, you do. And they'd walk me through it. And I would come back to them 3 hours later and I'd say, I hate Adobe Premiere. I just hate, and they would just start laughing because they're saying, yeah, you're talking like anyone who does video. And it was, it was the frustration that I was having. And they're going, and then they'd say, did you do this? And I went, no. And they go, well, yeah, that's what you needed to do. So now you got to do it all again. I said, what do you mean I got to do it again? He says, those 3 hours you spent? Yeah. He goes, well, those are done. And now you got to do it all over again. And he said, but now you know how to do it. And it's just like, thanks guys, really. And it was just, it just made me say, and they were just laughing because they're saying, you see how much work goes into this craft. And then I would finish and I'd give it to them and I'd say, what do you think? And they'd go, oh, you really need that to stay longer. And it's like, oh, you got to be joking. And it was just, like you said, it's that cumulative effort. And when, you get out there and you read the news or you do a podcast or you run through a script or you film something, and the folks who are doing the filming, it looks effortless. It looks so easy. It sounds so easy. That's the craft. That's the craft.
It is, and it's like people don't appreciate what it takes to learn to do what you do. I did for a real estate company. I did a promotional video for them, and I literally got I helped them out with the script, and we literally finished the script the day before, and it was so long. I couldn't memorize this whole thing. It was ridiculous. So we broke it down into shots, and I was literally memorizing the lines 5 minutes before each shot.
Oh no.
And people were like, you were literally memorizing those lines as you went along? I was like, yeah, because it was the only way to do it. There's no way I could memorize this whole thing. So each shot, I took the line or the paragraphs, whatever I needed to do, or I took the bullet points and was able to weave my way around it in my own presenting style. And they kind of looked at me and I was like, yeah, but it takes a lot of effort to do that, right? Oh, it's crazy, but I hate the whole cast. You always sending casting videos in, but I found something amazing this morning because I had to do one for this client where I had to read the script, and I always had the problem was I was always reading something on the screen, but when you're recording it on your phone or your camera or whatever, you're always kind of looking away. I found an app that is a teleprompter on my phone.
Oh, nice.
It records me as the text is going up the screen. So I'm looking at the camera and just, genius. How did I not find this sooner?
So have you ever thought about going into the coaching business for people? As opposed, like you said, people send you their reels and stuff. Have you ever thought about coaching them on the art of what Emma does?
Voice coaching. I have thought about voice coaching, and I don't know where to start with that. And I'd love someone to tell me where to start with that. Yeah, I really should look into it, because I think I probably have enough experience to help others out with that, but I wouldn't know where to start, to be honest.
So I wonder if it's just letting people know that, hey, you know what, I can help coach you. There is a fee, and I'm not going to get you a job, but I'm going to help you improve your personal presentation skills. And this is what we're going to do. I mean, instead of doing it in sort of like the webinar group class, maybe you do one of those just for the fun of it, to give people a sort of an overview, but really you work bespoke. You work with those individuals, like that guy who came to you and said, hey, here's my reel. I say, okay, your reel is like, okay, but you need to be awesome. No one wants okay. And we can fix this, and it might take 4 hours, and I'm going to work with you, and then you're going to have homework, and then we're going to come back. And by the time we're done in this period, and here's what it's going to cost you, you're going to be better. And that
do that.
Sounds to me like that's you. So you've got it, and
that's what I should be doing.
Yeah.
People underestimate the power of the voice, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with voice overs or presentations. Sorry for my, I don't know why that's being. The voice is just so important in everything, whether it's public speaking or just speaking to another person. You convey so much through by how you come across, how you speak.
Yeah.
And people forget that a lot, I think. So
I think even some of the folks who I listen to on the professional media, especially in the UAE, there's a few shows that I know I said I don't listen to a lot of radio anymore, and I don't. And I do listen to a couple shows once in a while, and then I turn them off. Not because I don't like the people. I love the people doing the shows, but they have some idiosyncratic expressions that drive me mad, or just some things that they do when they're talking. And there's one particular announcer, and he almost always throws in, when he's talking in kind of a slowish drawl as he delivers his monologues, which are usually, the entire show is a monologue. And I love the guy. But he'll always go, and as he's talking, and it's like, I can't do it.
I know exactly who you're talking about. And this is the point. You can hear the cogs whirring, right? You can hear the cogs whirring. Like, where's this going next? It's the pregnant pause, because I need to work out what I'm saying next. I totally get it, and I know who you're talking about, because it drives me as well. And I
often listen to, and he's like a guy who needs to come, and this is sort of the challenge with the commercial radio scene in the UAE, but everywhere, is hopefully, and maybe in your case, maybe what you're looking at is not saying, hey, I want to put up this shingle in the US or in the UK, but I want to do it in the Middle East for English language radio, or the Middle East and the Near East, and work with those folks on that, because that guy needs that help desperately, and no one's giving him that.
The bugbear I have is the shouters. Why are you shouting at me with everything you say? Talk to me. Don't shout at me. Why are we shouting into the microphone? I don't get it.
Yeah. But you want to know with radio, my favorite radio thing, and I never realized it until I started having a good conversation with Bluebird, and he's over on the Bomb 91.1 in Dubai. And what I love about Bluebird is, I don't know what his real name is. He only goes by that. I wish I did know what it was, but I know they told me once. I said to someone, that can't be his real name, and they did tell me, but it didn't stick. Yeah. So, and he's another guy who sleeps in the studio. He used to anyway, so that was kind of interesting. But the Filipino radio, do you know what their big thing is in Filipino radio? Maybe you've known this all your life, and I'm the only one who didn't realize it. They all have something they do that's special on Filipino radio.
Go on.
They all have a laugh.
They have a laugh.
All of the announcers have a trademark laugh, and I used to hear them doing it, and I used to say, what's with the laughs? And they go, that's the Filipino thing. All the announcers have, and so if you listen to 91.1 in Dubai and just listen to them, they always have these laughs, and they all are very distinct. And there was this one lady, Maria, who just a wonderful person, and her laugh was like the Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz.
Oh no!
So it was just classic, yeah. But yeah, see, that's what you need to do. You've got your career lined up for you, Emma. You're gonna make the world a better place to listen to. Oh no, I've lost her again. Her audio's died on her. She's talking, but I can't hear anything she's saying. Oh no, does it come back yet? No.
My laugh, the fake Monica laugh from Friends. That'd be crazy.
Well, Emma, our line is coming and going here. I think it's trying to tell me that, hey, James, you and Emma have had a long enough chat, and let her go. She's got that pole behind you. I want to see you on the pole. Actually, it's like
no.
I know that's a whole other thing. I think you could do that whole show too. That's probably a story. That's probably a short story of yours. My room.
Falling on my head from the pole.
Emma, this has been fantastic. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
It's been a great trip down memory lane, that's for sure.
So Emma Pinky B on Twitter, Emma Brain Official on Insta, emmabrain.com is your webpage. Yeah. That's how people can get a hold of you.
It is. Yeah, pretty much. It's all there. It's all there. Instagram, I'm probably most active on Twitter, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think so. Emma Pinky B, I think we communicate on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter a lot. I'm kind of good. I'm getting a bit bored of all the quarantine posts on Instagram at the moment.
What's your podcast called?
It's What's Up Ems.
Okay. What's Up Ems?
Yeah, because everyone calls me Ems for short.
What so is that a British thing? Is that an English thing, or?
Everyone just calls me that as a nickname.
Because I would never think of calling you Ems. Like that's the whole thing. I would never think of doing that.
I don't know where that started, but so people just call me that as a nickname. So I thought, what's up, Ems? That's fine.
Okay, awesome. Excellent. Well, Emma, thank you very much for taking the time, and we will keep in touch as we do. And I'm serious, though. I think you've got a career lined up right there. One of the channels of your career is helping people like me do better at what we do, and I'd pay for it. So I'm...
Oh, thank you. I will have to definitely, while we're locked in, the quarantine boredom, I need to, get started on that.
I think
once I finish my sexual psychology studies.
Yeah. How much longer does that online course go for?
I've nearly finished week 3, so it's 7 weeks, but I could run ahead with it. So, right. Yeah.
That's good. So this could also be a whole other side of things, right? Social psychology. Boom, you're in.
It's good. It's great.
See, you're very multidisciplinary as well. So I think there's so much going on here.
Yeah, but the problem is there, James, is jack of all trades, master of none.
Oh, there we go. On that note, I'm going to say goodbye.
Thanks, James. Thanks for checking in.
Thank you, Emma. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
Yeah.
You've been listening to Catching Up with myself, James Piecowye, on Podaholiks. And on this show, we were talking with Emma Brain. Oh, you'll know her. You're going to know her if you're in the UAE. She's a broadcaster, local celebrity, radio host, podcaster. Did I say that? And a whole bunch more. This has been Catching Up.